In this video, we're going to cover a little bit more about how to extend Baserow with third-party programming tools. For this example, we're going to build a multi-file upload system so that you can choose files from your local machine and upload them into your Baserow database. Now, first of all, this is a feature that you can purchase with a Baserow commercial license, and in many cases, if you don't want to have to do development work, if you want to ensure that the file upload, for example, is secure, if you don't want to have to be concerned with in working on a third-party server and involving other tools and services to provide this functionality, for a lot of situations, the paid features in Baserow are really the best and simplest way to go, and they're inexpensive. So consider that first when you have any sort of additional feature that you require for your Baserow application development. But in some cases, for example, if there's a need to use an open source system, or if you need to provide particular features that aren't available in the Baserow capabilities, then it makes sense to extend Baserow. So we're going to do this using several programming languages and several tools within the Python programming language, as well as some JavaScript. So you get an idea of how this sort of workflow works and how you have options to build this sort of functionality. So first we have here a simple little file uploader. It lets us choose files, and we can choose multiple files. So let's just click a couple here and upload those files. And you can see we have on this page, we've created a new row, and on this page we're displaying a Baserow grid which displays the columns in a particular table to which those files have been uploaded. And you can see we have a file name column which saves the file names, and you can actually access the files here. Scroll through them and see the creation date and so on. We have a place for notes. And then there are a couple versions of this. So this was built with a framework called Flask. It's a Python framework. And I have a more complex version of this down here, which allows us to choose a particular table we want to upload to. And then we can choose to upload that file into a particular row ID. It's optional. If in this little version of the app, if a row isn't selected, a new row is created. We can choose which field we want the files to be uploaded to. So in our database, if we had, for example, 2 fields or 3 fields that stored files for different reasons, we could choose which field we wanted to upload, choose the upload files, choose file names optionally. Otherwise, the given file names will be used. Let's choose a different file here, and then we could call that AI and no code. So instead of using this actual file name, we'll use this instead, and we can choose to give it some notes. This is a document about no code and AI. And we could give it a created date, and we could also choose the date time that's associated with that file. So we upload, and now you can see if we go up into our file, now this file name is not just the default file name that it was actually named on our local system. We can adjust that, and we can add a note here, and so on. We could also additionally change the created on and local file date time parameters. So we can do that in our little custom built app, custom hosted app, which we're integrating here as an iframe in the application. So that was all done with a Python framework called Flask, which is really well known and very simple to learn and use. You've seen in previous applications and examples that have included examples from Anvil, a framework that's a Python framework and simple to use and simple to get started with. This is just an Anvil implementation of this exact same sort of functionality. You can see all of these work to integrate with the same table. And so here on another page, I have that same functionality implemented in JavaScript. Lets us upload files as we need. let's do this. We can include notes. Let's run a test here, and you can see we've uploaded a file. That file is now available in the Baserow view that's inserted in an iframe here, and we were able to adjust the notes parameter. So in each of these cases, we've been able to use a different software development tool, and I have to emphasize that this really could be done with any programming language. So I'm going to go through showing you how we can embed Flask applications, Python Flask applications, and also JavaScript applications, as well as Anvil applications that have not just a back end, but also a front end. So first of all, since you've seen Anvil, what I'm going to do here is go over into this little file application I've created in Anvil, and you've seen it in previous tutorials. You can go to anvil.works, get a free account, and you can do all this for free. Now, one of the main benefits using Anvil is that you don't have to set up your own server. The free services that anvil.works provides, hosting, accounts, and multiple applications that you can create, really don't require any technical knowledge to set up. You just create a free account and you can start building applications like this. And in the previous tutorials, you saw that I built a little API, a REST endpoint, which processed some data and returned that data and displayed it in Baserow. What we're going to do here is actually create a user interface. That's one of the things that the Anvil framework does. It lets you build simple or complex user interfaces, GUI layouts, just by dragging and dropping items onto a screen. So it's that simple to do, and it's simple to do, but you can create very, very complex UI systems with Anvil. But here all I've done is created a button to select files, and then a button to actually perform the upload, and then I have a little label here that we're going to use to display some text. So the code for this, when we select files, or when we upload files, what's going to get written is this code here. So we have a way to view our code, and it's really easy to learn how to do this. I have a tutorial up. You can just search Learn Anvil in Google, and you'll come up with a 200-page tutorial that shows you everything about how to use Anvil. So we have this button, and what this does is it performs the action of actually performing this upload. So we call a server function, just here in our server module. You can see in our server module, I've got the Baserow key stored in secrets, so it doesn't show up in the code. I've got my API URL and the table ID that I want to upload the file to, and the field that I want to upload that file into. And then there's some Python code to perform that. Now, really key to understand that if you're new to Python, it's tasks like this, which ChatGPT and Gemini, DeepSeek, and other generative AI applications are great at generating code to do this sort of thing. You can go into ChatGPT and say, I need to build an Anvil function to upload a file, and it will generate code. Of course, there are potential security concerns that you need to be really aware of, and if you have absolutely no background in Python or in some other programming language, you're likely going to be lost in doing that. But it can be a huge help, not just when you're starting, but even as you get to know the programming languages really well. But just be aware that as you do get to know programming languages, ChatGPT and those sorts of generative AIs can really help make this sort of work go a lot faster, and do a lot of the sort of boilerplate work and basic logic and the creation of general structures you need. You may need to edit things a bit, but it can really help you in building this sort of code. And if you don't understand how a piece of code works, you can copy that code into ChatGPT or into Gemini or DeepSeek and have it grok any of those AIs and have it explain how this works. And you can work interactively with the AI to help you understand and better, more easily and more quickly create code like this. So all we're doing here is looping through the files that have been selected, getting the names of them, putting together a payload that we're going to send using the Python requests module, and send that request off to the Baserow API URL. So it performs that work of actually putting the files into your database. So again, that's a little bit beyond the scope of what this tutorial is going to cover, but the key is, in this situation, we can build a user interface that we can then make show up in an iframe in your Baserow application. So our Baserow application for this Anvil version includes a little header here, some text styled a bit so it's colored a certain way. We have a background color. I put some rounded corners on that, and then we have a iframe, which is a particular height. We have an additional iframe, which also is a particular height, and this is a generated view of the database that I'm using to back the system. So to start out, we have a uploaded uploaded files table, and that table includes file name, list of files, actual file type for that column, and it created on column and some other columns for notes and such. So in our application, we have a view of that inserted into an iframe. So when we look at our database, you can see we have our views, and we've got a grid view here, and that grid view has been shared. So this is the link for that grid view, and we're just inserting that into this iframe right here. For this iframe, I am inserting the Anvil app, which we created in Anvil. So very simply, the Anvil app does all the work of presenting a user interface where the user can select files from their local machine, perform the upload, and it runs the code on the in the server module to perform that integration to upload the files into Baserow. And so it's that simple. The other versions of this file upload take a little bit more work, and in order to use some system other than a fully hosted development environment like Anvil, you need to have a server set up. Typically, the best option for doing that is going to be a type of server called a VPS. So you can go to hosting.com, that's a popular one. You can go to Contabo, they have some good prices for VPS servers. Hostinger is another really really well-known and popular hosting company which provides VPS servers. So what VPS servers do is they provide you essentially a virtual computer. You start an account with them for a few dollars a month, and what they do is they provide you a full operating system that's entirely under your control. You can install whatever you want to install, get a certain amount of RAM and a certain amount of hard drive space, a certain number of CPU cores, some traffic that you can, a limit of traffic that you can use. And when you buy a service like this, whatever the host, you're going to get an interface that enables you to connect to this server. Now, typically, most commonly for most sorts of tasks that you see in software development environments that are hosted these days, Linux operating system is the most common. All of these services offer Windows versions too. Contabo has all sorts of Windows. You can select the operating system. You want a Windows, a particular version of Windows Server, and you can actually connect to those front ends using a shared desktop, and run it in your local computer as if you're at that desktop, and install any software that you want, and install any software development frameworks that you want, and install any other tools that you need, a separate database, any other sorts of tools, user interface development tools, any sort of software. You can, in fact, install an open source version of Anvil to run on your own server if you want to develop an application and then move that hosted version to your own private server. So these VPS offerings are the primary way you should look at hosting an application you're going to build yourself. So I will put in some tutorials in the future where we cover exactly how to do that, how to set up an account, and how to connect to that account. But once you have a server like this, if you're using Linux, you're going to connect using SSH. It's called Secure Shell. You can do that directly in your command prompt. You can SSH into a particular website on a particular port, or you can use a tool like PuTTY, which is really well known, popular for connecting to SSH. And what that does is it puts you at the command line of the server. So you need to learn a lot about how the command line of a Linux operating system works to do this. And so I've got this little server here. What you actually saw working as a file upload is running as this little service on a hosted VPS system, and have some code here. Let's start with this. I have a Python file called uploadfile.py for Python. And actually what I want to do is show you a version here that just has fake credentials in it. And this is the code that lets us connect. You can see I have a fake API token in here and a fake table ID and a fake name. And this is a Python Flask application. You can see it's got some HTML, which presents a form, a little styled form that allows you to upload multiple files. When the applications run, when you go to this upload path, the user gets shown that user interface, that little HTML form, and then it performs the same sort of upload routine that you saw in the Anvil application, and then creates a response when that is completed, or provides an error response, which is shown on the page. So again, that's a bit out of the scope of this tutorial, but so you see how the workflow goes and how the environment setup goes. So now I can run that. I'll use a really simple server here. Now that's running at this particular address right here. And in order to do this securely, you additionally on your server have to set up what's called HTTPS termination, and there are a lot of applications you can use to do that, systems you can use. On this server, we're using a system called Caddy, which makes this secure, so that the data from this application is transferred encrypted. That's what the S in the HTTP protocol stands for. So we have a version of this that runs insecurely, and then we have a version that runs securely. The insecure version is at an HTTP address, and then we use Caddy to implement that at a a different port. So I can use this application that's running on my VPS to do this work. And this works entirely with the Baserow API system to perform that upload. And you can see I have another version of it here that is a bit more complex that let us set the table. And that's some additional code in a Flask application that's running on a different port. So you can see there's a lot more work to get this sort of system set up, and then you have a lot of flexibility. If you know code, you can do this without without too much problem. And I have here another version of this application running on a different port, and what this version is a version that does the exact same thing but in JavaScript. So what I'm going to do here, in Linux you have a way of switching between sessions or sort of screens, kind of like different windows in Windows. You can imagine a bunch of console windows open. We have this little system called Tmux, and we can switch between all these windows that we have, sessions that we have where programs are running. So I have several different servers running on this VPS, and you can see here, let's see, and I'm actually in the wrong server here. So let's get out of this window, we'll go back. I'll list the servers that I have currently running. And it looks like, let's see, I have a JavaScript version here running. So Tmux, I'm going to open that session up. And there we go. Okay, so I'm running this using a little server that's built in Python, but the code itself is written in a typical HTML file. And you can see again, we display, when this HTML file is opened, we display a nicely little styled set of buttons and labels, and there's a form here that lets the users again select from multiple files on their local machine. And when that submit button is clicked, then we have, just like we did in all of these other applications, only in JavaScript code now. So this runs in your browser, in your browser in an HTML file instead of actually being performed on a server. This JavaScript code runs right in your browser, takes the API token, takes the URL of your Baserow API, provides the table ID and the file field, and then does this work of uploading the files to your Baserow account. So this is all done then in JavaScript, and that JavaScript runs in your browser. So I'm just going to serve this here, and this particular application is now at this address, and in my Baserow application, in the JavaScript version, I've now put a iframe on top, and we're now running that application, which is running at a particular port on my particular network port on my VPS server. You can see that this application is running at a different port than this application. They're both running on the same server, just running over different network port connections. And this one, Anvil, was running on my Anvil instance at anvil.works. So they all do the same thing. And if we wanted to build a system using C#, or if we wanted to build a system, an extension of Baserow using Ruby on Rails, we would use any of the tools that we have. We can self-host these kind of applications at a VPS, or we can use any sort of software development system that is hosted on a different server, and you can just embed these applications directly in an iframe. So the difference between what you're seeing in these applications and what we did in the previous examples is that previously we were simply using an API. There was no front end displayed by any of the examples you've seen previously. It just was sent some information from the front end here in Baserow. We connected to an API and got some information back, which we displayed. The difference here is we're now using a front-end system that's developed either in Anvil or in Flask or in plain old JavaScript and HTML, and served on a server. And that entire application with the front end is inserted here to perform an extension operation, something that can't be performed the way we necessarily want in Baserow, and integrated. So as soon as that upload is performed, Baserow's beautiful view here is updated automatically, and we see the updates to that table in our page. So hopefully that provides a little bit more of an understanding of how extensions work. If you're a software developer, this should be familiar, and if you've done any work in software development, building web apps, you'll have some functionality already set up to do these sorts of things. Maybe you use PHP and you're used to building front ends basically in HTML with PHP extensions, and you have that hosted on some sort of commercial web host, or maybe even host on your own machine on site in a data center, and you make those applications available over a particular domain or at a particular IP address. However you build applications, you can connect with the Baserow database and show those applications in an iframe, and then use the built-in tools in Baserow to show what you're doing with the database, or to build other application features like navigation. I actually have a little navigation down here, so I can switch between these different versions. So I have the Flask version here, and I have the Anvil version here, and then I have the JavaScript version here. And all of those are separate pages of an application. So I have the file upload here, the Anvil file upload here, and the JavaScript file upload here. And at the bottom of each of those pages, I have a menu inside a multi-page footer, so I can switch between them in my app. So that hopefully opens up a little bit more understanding about how Baserow can be extended, so you are never limited to what you can do with Baserow. You just build what you can in Baserow, use the commercial features if they're the best option, or if you want to, if you need to build more specific features like this, like my little really complex file upload system here that lets me choose a table and so forth, and adjust the fields of the database that go along with each row of the upload files. You can do that. That's something that you sort of have unlimited capability. And then if I needed to, for example, email those uploaded files to someone, I can do that. You saw that in the previous tutorial that we emailed purchases made with the cash register system to the buyers. So this sort of can expand into any functionality you can imagine with an application, and you're just never limited by or limited to the features that in Baserow. Use the Baserow features to do everything you can, and then when you run into a feature that you need in an application, you can extend it easily using any development system like you've seen here. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.